Hello, my name is Mary Durfel, K-3 Literacy Consultant for the Piedmont Triad region, and today I have the honor of presenting the third installment of NCDPI's Hot Summer Topics, Evidence-Based Instructional Practices in Early Reading, Part 1. Let's get started.
Hot Summer Topic number 3. First, a quick recap of the hot topics so far. The first video is an overview of the science of reading. The body of research known as the science of reading instructs us in how the brain learns to read and the type of instruction that creates the pathways in the brain necessary to become a reader. The second video addresses explicit instruction. Structured literacy is the practical application of the science of reading in the classroom. One principle of structured literacy is that instruction should be explicit, meaning that concepts and skills are directly taught and practiced. It should not be assumed that students will learn skills and concepts implicitly. Today, we will focus on evidence-based instructional practices. The Institute of Education Sciences has published a practice guide for educators called the Foundational Skills to Support Reading for Understanding in Kindergarten through 3rd grade. This guide provides educators with evidence-based instructional practices. Research has found these instructional practices to be successful in developing the foundational skills of reading and are grounded in the body of research known as the science of reading. Using these evidence-based practices in your classroom supports the development of the pathways that exist in the brain of skilled readers. This video will outline the first 2 recommendations for supporting foundational reading skills, as well as give an overview of how to implement these recommendations in the classroom. Recommendations 3 and 4 will be addressed in the next video in our Hot Summer Topics series. The first evidence-based recommendation is to teach students academic language skills, including the use of inferential and narrative language and vocabulary knowledge. Oral language is foundational to the development of reading skills. Academic language is the language of books and school. Students need academic language skills in order to comprehend this language structure, which can differ significantly from everyday conversational language. To build these academic language skills, educators should use explicit instruction to teach inferential language, narrative language, and academic vocabulary knowledge. There are 3 suggestions for implementing recommendation 1. One way is to engage students in conversations that support the use and comprehension of inferential language. This should be intentionally planned during a time such as read aloud or during content instruction. Teachers should plan specific, open-ended questions which students will be instructed to answer orally in complete sentences. The second recommendation for implementation is to explicitly engage students in developing narrative language skills. Students should be taught to clearly restate a series of events. For example, explaining how to do something they enjoy, like shooting hoops, or how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. The third way to implement this recommendation is to teach academic vocabulary in the context of other reading activities. Teachers should choose vocabulary words that are relevant across many content areas and that will support students' current reading and learning. Let's look a bit deeper at how a teacher might implement this in the classroom. Vocabulary knowledge and comprehension are highly correlated. Once students are able to read the words on the page, vocabulary becomes the most important single factor for reading comprehension. Explicit instruction should be used to teach academic vocabulary. Let's take a look at a vocabulary instructional practice you can use routinely in the classroom. Choose 3 to 5 words that are central to the meaning of the text or that support content students are reading or learning. Once words have been chosen, say the word clearly for students. Write the word for students to see and read the word to them. Have them say the word as well. You may even break the word into syllables or morphemes. Give a student-friendly definition of the word. To use a multisensory approach, connect the word to a motion. Give examples and non-examples of the word. Engage the students with the word in some way. You may engage students by having them respond corally with yes or no, a thumbs up, thumbs down as you give examples and non-examples. You might ask yes or no questions about the word. Have the students use the word correctly. If a student can use the word correctly, you know the student owns the word. Let's take a look at this routine in action. Agnes, today we're going to read a story and it has this word in it. I'm going to read this word to you and then I want you to say it with me. This word has 2 syllables. Migrate. Let's put those together really quick. Migrate. What word?
Migrate.
Migrate. We're going to talk about what migrate means. Migrate means to move from one place to another. Move. So when you migrate, you are moving from one place to another. That's right. So here's an example of migrate. The wild geese migrate south for the winter. Or another example is some people migrate from Canada to the United States. Now I am going to use the word migrate in some sentences, and I want you to listen carefully. If I use the word correctly so that it means to move from one place to another, I want you to say yes when I snap. If I don't use it correctly, if I use it incorrectly so that it doesn't mean to move from one place to another, I want you to say no when I snap. All right, here we go. First example. Each year, monarch butterflies migrate from Mexico to the United States.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Each year, monarch butterflies move. They migrate. And I used it correctly because they go from the United States to Mexico. So they move or migrate. Here's another one. I migrate while I sit still and watch TV.
No.
That's right, because if I'm sitting still, I am not moving. I am not migrating from one place to another. Now, I'd like you to use migrate in a sentence. Recommendation 2 is to develop awareness of the segments of sound in speech and how they link to letters. When we talk about the segments of sound in speech, we are referring to phonological awareness, which is the ability to notice the sound structure of spoken words. Phonological awareness does not incorporate print. It could even be done in the dark if you chose to do so because it is focused on the sounds we hear. Phonemic awareness is a part of the broader term of phonological awareness. Phonemic awareness is the ability to manipulate words at the phoneme level. Once we connect the speech sound to the letters or graphemes that represent them, we have entered the realm of phonics. Phonics teaches sound-symbol correspondences. This recommendation should be carried out in the classroom by implementing the following instructional practices. Teach students to recognize and manipulate segments of sound in speech. Teach students letter-sound relations. And use word building and other activities to link students' knowledge of letter-sound relationships with phonemic awareness. The first instructional practice is to teach students to recognize and manipulate segments of sound in speech. The importance of developing students' ability to manipulate sounds in speech cannot be overstated. In his book, Essentials of Assessing, Preventing, and Overcoming Reading Difficulties, Dr. David Kilpatrick states, there is simply no aspect of word-level reading that is unaffected by phonological skills. This is why the phonological core deficit is far and away the most common reason why children struggle in word-level reading. Phonological awareness instruction should be systematic and sequential. In addition, it is imperative to remember that phonological awareness instruction does not involve any writing or looking at print, but rather is completely auditory. In order for students to recognize that words are made up of individual sound units, or phonemes, it is best to start with this sequence. Sentences can be broken into words. Words can be broken into syllables. Recognize smaller units of sound within a syllable, which is onset and rhyme. Isolate and manipulate the individual phonemes or smallest units of sound in a word. This critical instructional practice involves teaching students letter-sound relations, or phonics. It is important to note that the following components outlined in the practice guide must be executed with accurate articulation of sounds. Let's take a quick look at an instructional progression for teaching letter-sound relations. Teach letters, or graphemes, and corresponding sounds, focusing on a few phonemes at a time. Focus on consonants and short vowel sounds, represented by single letters first. Next, introduce consonant blends, common two-letter consonant digraphs. Then teach long vowels with silent E. And finally, two-letter vowel teams. Use word building and other activities to link students' knowledge of letter-sound relationships with phonemic awareness. To begin spelling and decoding words, students must learn to apply the alphabetic principle to link sounds to letters and connect their awareness of how words are segmented into sound with their knowledge of different letter-sound relationships. Let's take a look at a video of a word building routine that demonstrates this instructional practice. We are going to play a word building game. On each turn, one sound in the word will change. I'm going to show you how I figure out the sound to change. Let's change fat to cat. At, fat. The first sound I hear in fat is f, and the letter F spells the f sound. But I don't hear f at the beginning of cat. I hear k at the beginning of cat. I'm going to choose a letter card that spells the k sound. C spells the k sound. So I'm going to change the F for a C. The new word is cat. Now it's your turn. Change cat to bat. Have the students say the words cat and bat. Wait for them to make the letter change and give feedback if there are any mistakes. Thank you for watching this short informative video on evidence-based instructional practices. To access the IES Practice Guide, please visit the Read to Achieve Reading Repository. There you will find more in-depth information about the topics covered today. And don't forget to share this video with colleagues and friends.